Hello and welcome. My name is Gbitse and I'm here to share with you today on an aspect of sales and negotiation skills. Specifically, I'm going to be talking and sharing with you about the principles of influence. Now, one of the things that all sales professionals face is how do we close the sale? You've made your presentation, you've given the benefits, the features of your product or your service. How do you close that sale? What are those things that you can say or do right at the end to get the conviction of the customer, of the prospect that you are speaking with? One of the things I have learned is called the principles of influence. There are 4 principles of influence that I'm going to share with you today, and we will learn how to apply these principles to help us to close the sale. Principle number 1 is the principle of reciprocation. And the word reciprocate simply means to exchange, isn't it? To give something to get something. And so the thought that sales professionals should be thinking right now as you listen to this lecture on the principle of reciprocation is, what is it that I can give to a prospect so that he will give me a sale? One of the things I found that I could give prospects throughout my selling career was a referral. Think about this. You're sitting in front of a company. The company's director is your prospect or your target. Guess what? You can perhaps give a referral to that company. You can tell the company that you would offer to introduce their own products to your own customers. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a form of reciprocity. Now, once you've done that, the director, the manager you're speaking to, then feels compelled to reciprocate your kind gesture of sort of giving him a referral, and then he would perhaps give you some business. Principle number 2, the principle of authority. Now, what we have learned is that customers, prospects will typically say yes to a buying decision if you can show some level of expertise or credibility. So take, for example, you've got someone selling health insurance and that person is a medical doctor. That is a very powerful use of the principle of authority, because I'm a medical doctor and I'm selling you health insurance. I will do a lot better as a medical doctor selling health insurance than somebody who studied, say, economics or accounting selling health insurance, because people are always concerned about how health insurance affects their medical benefits and indeed their health, and there will be no better person to sell health insurance than a medical doctor himself. The principle of authority. The third principle I have found very compelling and I have used quite well is the principle of scarcity. And this principle holds that if your customers know what they stand to lose by not buying your product or service, then perhaps they will be compelled to buy your product or service. The idea here is to say to your customers, if you do not take advantage of this offer today, then perhaps you will not be able to take advantage of the offer again. It's, all the things that we say around limited stock available, take it now while offer lasts. All those things are playing on the principle of scarcity. The principle of scarcity, what does your prospect stand to lose? If you can articulate what your prospect stands to lose, you will most likely get their attention. It's about the opportunity cost. Customer, if you do not buy this today, it may not be available tomorrow. If you do not buy this today, the price may have gone up by next week. The principle of scarcity. If you do not buy this today, it means that perhaps you would have lost the opportunity to get XYZ. All those things are the principle of scarcity. Ladies and gentlemen, the fourth principle I will share with you today is the principle of consensus. And I particularly like this principle. This principle speaks to the concept that if your customers know that other people like them have bought your product or service, they will be more interested in buying your product or service. So let's put it another way. Imagine if your customer, your prospect, knows that his own competitors have bought your product. So you say, for example, I do training and I say to the number 2 bank in Nigeria that, do you know that the number 1 bank in Nigeria does training with us? That may be a compelling trigger to get that other organization, the number 2 bank in Nigeria, to say, oh well, if the number 1 bank does training with you, we would like to be the number 1 bank, so I think we should do training with you also. The principle, ladies and gentlemen, of what? Consensus. Customers will most likely say yes if they know that people who are similar to them have said yes already. Another way we use this principle of consensus is when you are sending a business proposal. So, for example, you talk about your track record or your past experience or your references. What you should do is that you should accentuate references and referrals that are related to the industry in which you are prospecting. So let's say you're prospecting to the oil and gas industry. If you are bringing up references and past testimonials from people in banking, in insurance, in educational services, you are not using the principle of consensus. If you really want to use the principle of consensus, all your examples should show organizations in the oil and gas industry so that that person, that decision maker, then feels, whoa, if everybody in my industry is buying this product, then perhaps I should give it a thought. Ladies and gentlemen, the principles of influence, they are very powerful. They are very different and distinct from trying to manipulate your customers, which is very unethical. What we must do is to apply these principles as ethically as possible. Number 1, the principle of reciprocation. You give something to get something. Number 2, the principle of authority. Who are you? What is your track record? What is your pedigree? What special qualification do you have that ensures that the customer would listen to you? Principle number 3, the principle of scarcity. What is the opportunity cost of the customer not taking a decision now? Principle number 4, the principle of consensus. Who else has bought your product or service and can influence the person that you are currently selling to? Thank you on the principles of influence.